What is up, guys? We are 2 days away from the 49ers Week 3 matchup with the Denver Broncos. I got my boy Randon McMahon, all the way from Texas out here to talk to us about the game. Stay tuned. Keep it locked. What is up, fam? Thank you so much for tuning in to So Real Sports Talk. We got a really good show for you today, this Friday evening. I got my brother from another mother, Randon. For those of you that don't know Randon, he does do a regular show with Rob Shu on his channel. You could see him on Amin the Dream. He's really a old school hockey guy, but he does dabble in 49er talk, and I do love hearing his perspective because he has a different outlook when it comes to 49ers. So, Randon, I know it's been a few months since you've been on the show, my man. How have you been?
Good, man. That intro's vibing, man. You're moving up in this world. You got new backdrops. You got new videos going on.
I know, man. I had to step it up.
Where's that coming from? You got OnlyFans? Where can you step your OnlyFans, man?
We only shans over here. But I had to step it up, man. If I'm gonna have you back on, I gotta elevate my game, right? I can't just be keeping stagnant.
I like it. I like it a lot, man. Thank you for having me on. It's been a long time, man. I'm ready to talk some Niners with you.
I love it, man. Sean Keleohi, aloha faithful. Thank you for tuning in, Sean, all the way out there in Hawaii. So, Randon, we haven't talked about the 49ers in quite some time. It was in the offseason the last time you were here. Now we're 3 weeks in to the season, or about to be 3 weeks into the season. Some Niner news that kind of went under the radar that I wanted to get your perspective on was there was an extension, and no, it wasn't Nick Bosa. It was actually Dre Greenlaw got an extension, and this one was kind of interesting to me, Randon, because, you know, obviously the linebacking core for the 49ers is one of their strengths. They seem to do very well with bringing guys in that are undrafted or lower draft picks and being able to develop them. Dre Greenlaw, for the longest time to us commentators, was somebody that might have been on the trading block as somebody that they could have bought low on as a 5th round draft pick and, you know, maybe get a third or 4th rounder for. But they ended up deciding to extend him. What did you think about the deal, and what did you think about the overall decision to extend Dre Greenlaw?
Yeah, the team is in a walk the tightrope type mode right now, right? When they're trying to develop guys like Trey Lance and see what they can do, as well as young running backs like Eli Mitchell, and then win a Super Bowl. So it's kind of tough to see where their mindset is at, and there's not really one way you can go about it, right? You extend a linebacker in Dre Greenlaw who is capable of being a starter. A lot of people, I was having this talk on Twitter today that thinks he's a near Pro Bowl caliber player, and I don't really see that. I just see he's a capable starter in there. You really look at his contract, and total money pays him the 15th most highest contract in the NFL for linebackers. And is that really where he stands from a talent standpoint? I don't think so. But the team is trying to win. They're assuming the cap is going to go up to a higher level to where they'll be able to fit everything in there. But you know me, I talk about value all the time. How do you get value out of players? Where does a team is able to draft guys to get rookie contracts? Linebackers, if you look at the draft history on any draft, there's very little first-round linebackers. Why? Because they're not a prime position. They get moved back to the second round, just like guards and centers. And so you can get a lot of first-round talent later on. Eagles drafted a first-round talent in Dean from Georgia, I believe in the 4th round this year. right? So you can get, just because they don't have a first round pick in the Niners doesn't mean they can't get value at the linebacker position. And now I understand that both Azeez and Greenlaw were both up for contracts. We knew that they were probably going to pay one of them. I was more in the Azeez farm than the Greenlaw farm, but I'm looking at the contract here, and you're like, okay, well, first year cap hit, $5 million. That still puts him in the top 15 of salary for linebackers. I don't think he's a top 15 linebacker. Next year, it shoots up to 9.6. I mean, yeah, you could cut him, but you still have almost $4 million in dead cap. I really just don't see where the value is in this contract. It has nothing to do with Dre Greenlaw as a player. It really has everything to do with the value. You're already paying Fred Warner top of his salary. You have all these extensions, Juice, yada, 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 at the top of their salary. Linebacker's not really a prime position. You can also find value in the draft in linebacker later on. And you have a guy and I believe is McCray Ball on the practice squad that balled out just like Azeez did and proved himself to where he might be able to step in and be the third linebacker. You draft somebody in the second, third round, and you still have a good core for relatively cheap, right? If Lance ends up being the guy that we think he might be in the future, you're talking about 50, 60 million a year. You're talking about resetting the defensive line market with Nick Bosa. Like, there's a lot of contracts that need to come out, and has nothing to do with Drake Greenlaw. I think the fact that they just overpaid a little bit, and it might not be, people like looking at it, okay, 2.7, 1.8 million in dead contract, but that's still a lot. When you're trying to win a Super Bowl, you want to maximize every little penny that you can. And I just think they overpaid a little bit, especially for a guy that missed pretty much the entire season last year.
Yeah, and especially at a position, because I look at the two positions for the 49ers that they never should really overpay unless it's like a all-world type player. And that is on the offensive side, running back, and on the defensive side is linebacker, because they've done so well with guys like Azeez Al-Shaair, with guys like Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles. A guy like Oren Burks was a third-round draft pick of the Green Bay Packers, and they were able to get him pretty much for cheap, bringing him in there. And he's a guy that, is there for depth and stuff like that. So it is interesting that they decided to go ahead and pay Dre Greenlaw and then pay him substantially as well, especially for a guy that isn't even the best linebacker on your team, right? So, and I just want to argue
that he's not even the top 2 linebacker on your team.
Right. Azeez is there. And Sean's asking, when is Azeez's contract year? I believe he got tendered this year. So I think that means he's on a 1-year deal. I think he had a second-round tender they put on him. So I believe he's not signed past this year, Sean.
Yeah,
but
it's a 1-year deal for 3.9.
Yeah. So he's in a contract year. What this probably means is they're not going to re-sign him, because I'm sure he'd be able to get much more on the open market. But
you can't have 3 linebackers making top 20 money. You just can't.
Right. So I guess they chose Greenlaw over Azeez Al-Shaair for whatever reason. So anyways, there is a game coming up Sunday. It is the Sunday night game, so definitely prime time for the 49ers. And let's just go straight from the jump. Obviously, this team is 1-1, one extremely dominant victory, one silly loss based off of a lot of penalties. But it is safe to say that we still don't exactly know what team this is, Randon. And, there is a familiar foe across the way with the quarterback over there. I can't believe I'm having a brain fart right now. Russell Wilson. I just want to forget him because of everything he did against us when he was playing for the Seahawks. But what would you say are the keys to victory for the 49ers to really show who they are and actually, get a victory over a team that many, at least before the season started, had as like a Super Bowl favorite? So what do the 49ers need to do to make sure they walk out of Mile High with a W?
Yeah, both teams are walking similar paths right now. In week 1, they lost to an inferior team because of penalties and mistakes that they've made. 2 fumbles in the goal line for the Broncos, as well as over 100-yard in penalties. Turnover differential for the Niners wasn't great, over 100-yard in penalties. And they really got it back online in the second game. Now, you might be saying, oh, well, the score was close against Houston, but and the Niners dominated, but I don't think that really tells the full story. You look at Jerry Jeudy, looked like he came down with a broken collarbone, probably should have been out. Chances are he won't play this game. Didn't practice today. You also, and you also have Patrick Surtain possibly out, KJ Hamler possibly out. So, man, there's a lot of guys on the Denver side that doesn't really factor in. And you look at the money lines right here, Niners are plus 1.5, and you get 3 points for being at home on most betting. So, the Niners are probably, barely a favorite, even though that they're playing on the road. That just shows how deep the Broncos team is. And with Russell Wilson believing that he can carry almost everybody. I think the keys to the game is that two things. It's all going to be on the defensive side of the football. Broncos run the football very well with Javonte and Melvin Gordon, probably the best 1-2 punch, maybe outside of Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison in the National Football League. Over 5 yards per carry, I believe, so far this season. Niners less than 3, so something's got to give there. Eric Armstead nursing an ankle injury. They might pop him full of cortisone, get him to start for the game, and have him be in there and have him feel the pain when he's drinking his beers afterwards. But the middle of the defensive line is a little thin. And, you really want those big boys in Kinlaw and Armstead to be able to soak up those tackles in the middle. And then on the outside, our defensive backs in Mosley and Ward have been locking everybody down. If you don't have Judy being able to sit in every position on the field, slot, whatever, and it's really only Cortland Sutton, you got to think that they're going to be able to lock it down with him and make them one-dimensional in that field. I believe their tight end is essentially non-existent so far this season. Fred Warner should be able to guard him as well as the other linebackers that we talked about. And so ultimately, if the injuries do exist for the Broncos, the defense should be able to lock them down. And I think that would be the keys to victory.
Yeah, I mean, definitely this Denver team doesn't look as dominant as many looked at them. And a lot of it is injuries, right? Tim Patrick went down before the season even started. He's obviously a great weapon for them as a wide receiver. Judy, has the injury. I think he didn't practice today, but supposedly he's supposed to play this game, but I'm not 100% sure at that. But yeah, for me, I do think defense is going to be big, but for me, really, it's going to be also this is the first game where it's a Jimmy's team again, right? So it's a new game plan for defenses. Like last week, Seattle wasn't really, aiming for Jimmy, right? They were preparing for Trey. Obviously, unfortunately, Trey went out and is out for the season. So now it's back to Jimmy's team. And I think one of the reasons the defense looked so dominant last game, Randon, is because the offense actually scored points. And for me to really unlock what this defense is capable of, the offense turning the opposing offense into a one-dimensional offense where they actually have to score points and get into the passing game, I think that's where it's going to help this defense out and make this game a dominant victory the most. Because if it has to go to let Russ cook, and this defense could just prepare for rushing the passer every single down, and especially with what you talked about, a diminished receiving core, it could be a tough night out for Russ. And that's what I really think. If this is just a game where it's close, it's still Russ there. And we know what he's been able to do when the game is close, right? Because the 49ers offense couldn't score. I want to see that complementary style of football, Randon, where Jimmy can move the ball like he did in the first half of the game and of last week's game, and really put some points on the board to make it easier for this defense to just buckle down and be one-dimensional. Because like you said, the best part of this Denver offense is the running game. And if you could get rid of the running game because we've, scored some points and they need to put points on the board, I think that makes it an easier victory for the team overall.
Yeah, even if they can move to the passing game completely, Javonte Williams had 11 catches in week 1, so they can catch the ball in the backfield. Melvin Gordon's very good. But, even as much as I am upset, or not upset, but a little questioned by the contract of Dre Greenlaw, he's not playing under that contract this year. And the Niners have one of the best linebacker cores in the NFL. They should be able to get out there and contain the catches from the running back. I think it comes down a little bit as well to, what are we doing here as far as Gunslinger Jimmy, right? Like Gunslinger Jimmy is here to stay, according to the press conference. I like it. I like that he's maybe playing with house money, so to speak, coming out and just slinging it, being more relaxed. We'll see if that really works in their favor. But, always the key to our game and as far as on the offensive side of the football is the middle of the field and the run game, right?
Right.
Broncos linebackers are very thin. George Kittle's going to be back. I think he's going to be keys to victory. You're going to hear me mention his name later in the show. Wink, wink, foreshadowing. But the run game needs to be big. You look at Jeff Wilson had a decent game last week. People say decent, but I thought he had a little bit of burst. I don't know if he's full of Jeff Wilson still. And then you had Jordan Mason coming in, never had an NFL carry. People are pumping his tires in preseason, but still, preseason isn't regular season. So,
right,
with diminished linebacking core, Matt coming off an ACL tear, wasn't even good enough to make the Houston roster. Like, there's a lot of question marks in the backfield. If we can't run the football and we become one-dimensional, you have guys like DJ Jones. We know the Mr. Barbecue Sauce can get in the backfield and disrupt, anybody. So, their defensive line is pretty decent as well. And so we're going to have to move the football, like you said. But I think ultimately, if we keep them in check on the defensive side of the football, we're going to be good. And I think the biggest key right there to that also is this year, small sample size, but we're averaging one turnover more a game than the opponent. In 2019, we were 0.4 turnovers more per game than our opponent. If you could guess what it was last year, negative 0.02. So the turnover differential is huge. Hufunga's playing out of his mind. If we can let Russ cook and then steal some of his dumplings, so to speak, with this team will be ready to go.
It is nice to have an opportunistic defense alongside the dominant defense because they're still, getting the sacks as well with already 4 on the season. So pretty exciting there. But let's talk, I know you mentioned and you kind of mentioned some things that need to happen for the 49ers to win, but what would you say is the biggest concern for the 49ers right now going into this game?
Yeah, the biggest concern, I think it was going to be the push in the run game. And now, you got to give them all their props as well. The interior offensive line was the biggest question mark coming into the season. No pressures, I believe, all year, or no sacks all year for the interior offensive line, according to some guy's Twitter post that I read 10 minutes before I came on.
Yeah, here. It was Coach Yak.
Yeah, so so that's definitely positive for them. But DJ Jones, like I said, is a beast. He is nursing an injury. I think he'll play. But the run game has got to get going. And as much as people are fans of Jeff Wilson and signing Tevin Coleman into the practice squad, we can't rely on the crypt keepers to keep it going. Like Jordan Mason's going to have some effect in this game, or are they going to go to they're going to go to Mac? Mac was a 1,000-yard rusher, had multiple injuries that derailed his career, wasn't able to make the Houston team. Whether that was because of Pierce and Burkhead, or was that because of his own abilities, we'll soon find out, because I'm sure he'll get some carries in this game as well. I think that'll be the key, the biggest concern for us, because the offense, when it comes one-dimensional and the team can stack the box and you make Jimmy beat you, that's not a recipe for success for the Niners typically. Now, is this new Jimmy where he's going to be throwing deep and outside the numbers? That remains to be seen. But I really think that the defense is depleted. And a lot of people are going to be saying that, Patrick Surtain might be out too. Well, Jimmy doesn't really attack the corners. Kyle Shanahan wants to attack the middle of the field. George Kittle's going to be there. You're going to get Deebo Samuel in space. So I really don't think that injury is going to play much into effect as people think it will. And I really think the biggest concern is going to be the run game if we can get it going. And I think they should be able to, because the offensive lines play better than expected. You just never know.
Right. I'm going to go a different route, because I still think that Russ still, even though he hasn't been playing well the last few seasons, I should say, he always looks good against the 49ers for whatever reason. And the 49ers, I guess, still haven't shown the ability, or I guess when the 49ers look bad, or when other opposing in the first 2 games, the quarterbacks really got off, is when they broke containment, right? And we saw that with Justin Fields in the second half, how they ended up winning. It was not in the pocket. It was when he broke containment. Geno actually had some good passes when he was able to break containment. And we know that's what Russ does to this team as well. So for me, if they could keep Russ in the pocket, I think this bodes well for the team. But if they allow Russ to get out of the pocket, start, making plays, breaking containment, like you said, they have these running backs that are good at, getting out of the backfield and becoming weapons in the passing game. Sutton still has speed, and even though I think that our secondary will be able to contain him, still it's hard to contain any NFL wide receiver for 4, 5, 6 seconds, right? If Russ could get time. So I think that it's really going to be important for the defensive line to maintain their discipline, make sure that they keep Russ in the pocket, because I don't think Russ is going to be able to do too much damage with his depleted weapons out of the pocket. In the pocket. Out of the pocket, I think it's a whole different game, Randon. So I'm looking more towards that versus, the rushing attack and all that kind of stuff.
Well, props to Mosley. I believe it's been 21 weeks since he's allowed a touchdown that's been directly targeted against him. Cereberus Sports already has a pick this season. So if there's any part of the defense that I feel confident right now is one-on-one coverage with their best weapon. And if you get Jerry Jeudy all over the field, KJ Hamler is going to start. KJ Hamler is a second-round pick, I believe, right? Has a lot of burner speed. Injuries, like I said, cortisone shots, get the players going. They feel all nice and good. They only need to feel good for 3 hours, and then they can feel as crappy as they want and get on the field. So I think one-on-one, if he's the only weapon that they have and they're throwing at guys that are bagging groceries onto the field,
right?
Yeah, I think our corners will do pretty good. But like you said, the ghost of Christmas past, as Russell Wilson has been, if this game is close, you never feel confident with him behind center.
Right. Exactly. We don't want this to be a game where Denver gets their confidence back, right? We want them to dominate and keep them trying to figure it out. But let's go positive now. Like, where do you think the 49ers really outmatched the Denver team, and where should they be able to dominate in this game?
If the injuries hold pat, I've been praising it all podcasts, is the secondary. The corner should be able to lock down who they need to lock down. Hufanga should be able to run wild and not really have any worry about getting beat deep with no speed guys on the field. I mean, Cortland Sutton is a bigger wide receiver, more of a jump ball guy. And praise to both the safeties, both top 5 according to PFF, whether you like their grading system or not. Still impressive. And so I really like the fact that you're going to be able to just rely on your corners to stay locked down. And that's going to allow the defensive line to eat, hopefully, right? I mean, Russell can still move, but the Niners should be able to get to the passer, and they just need to finish. They haven't been able to finish very much with the first 2 rushing quarterbacks, and they need to finish this game.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I think the secondary is, the best secondary that Shanahan has had, I think, in his whole tenure with the 49ers. Not only are they able to just lock people down and play disciplined brand of ball without making penalties, which has been a big Achilles heel of the secondary in the past, but they're ball hawks. Everybody on this team could get interceptions, especially with the way Hufanga's playing. Like, he's looking like an all-pro level type player right now with how much disruption he has in the backfield. And these guys are just ball hawks now. And the fact that we can now change field position through turnovers really, really, I think, helps out an offense that, tends to struggle moving the ball consistently. So I think that added element is something that the 2019 49er defense had as well, when Richard Sherman was still, near his prime. I know he was on the back end of it, but he was still able to go out there and, use his, mentals to be able to get some interceptions and change field position there as well. That's similar to what this defense is. And, with Jimmy, obviously having a ceiling to what he's capable of as a quarterback, I think it bodes well that if the defense could put the offense in good field position due to turnovers, that makes it easier for guys like Debo, guys like Ayuk, guys like Kittle to get involved in the game in a shorter field and give Jimmy that confidence to be able to put points on the board consistently.
Very astute. I mean, the Niners are top 10 in field position when starting on the offensive side of the football. They were 29th last season. So the special teams acquisitions have definitely come to fruition. Recently extended Mitch Wisnowski, the Aussie phenom over there, making coffin kicks left and right. And so this team is definitely in the right direction. Now, I want to, temper expectations. We played in the Mud Bowl there in week 1 and a really bad Seahawks team. And so this will be a real test to see how the whole full team comes together, regardless of injuries, because any good quarterback can throw it around with whatever wide receivers they have available. I really think this is where the defense will get a little bit tested, according to, with Russell Wilson. I think where we should dominate on the offensive side of the ball is in the middle of the field. Linebacking core for the Broncos is pretty depleted. George Kittle will play this game. He had a huge game against Denver a couple of years back, and obviously they're not the same teams, but you hope we have the same result. We know Jimmy likes to throw the middle of the field. We get the run game going, and you have George Kittle. Man, I mark it down right now, 100 in TD for JK, right, or GK right there. So I think he's going to have a big game coming back. He's hyped to play. The injury in the beginning of the season is tough, right? He's an emotional guy, gets injured, not able to be with his team. I think this is going to be his opening game type adrenaline level, ready to come in on prime time. I believe 100 and a touchdown for George Kittle. I think he's going to dominate the middle of the field.
He's been spending a lot of time watching WWE, so I think that he's going to have that added energy to really run out there on the field and, lay some. I'm sure he's ready to hit somebody out there as well. And, we talk about in the pass game, but he's a huge benefit to the run game as well, right? So having him on whatever side of the run game is gonna help as far as getting out to the edge for guys like Jeff Wilson, or hopefully, like you said, Jordan Mason, who I think has the most speed out of the running back core that's left with Elijah Mitchell not there. So, I think the addition of Kittle definitely helps, especially him and Jimmy. They have that bond as well. So we know that Jimmy likes throwing the ball out to him, and that's his kind of safety net. But, there's still Debo, there's still Ayuk. So 49ers aren't hurting for weapons. Let's put it that way. So it should be good. And, I think that if the defense dominates as we think they should, the offense should be put in really great position to move the ball well. And, if you believe in NFL math, Seahawks beat Denver, 49ers smashed the Seahawks. So this should be a really dominant victory for the 49ers. But let's move to, I know you kind of mentioned, so I don't know if there's a different player that you're going to mention, but who do you think emerges as the star of this game?
Yeah, I'm gonna double up here and double dunk, so to speak. And I think it's George Kittle. I think he's gonna come back, have a huge game. I think, like I said, over 100 in a tug. I really think the fact that the middle of the field is susceptible in Broncos, and there's not enough talent on the defensive side of the football if Surtain leaves, right? If you can have Surtain on an island with Ayuk and you allow somebody to follow Debo around, Debo's going to still get his. We saw it last week. It was 1-on-4 with the defenders and still broke a 50-yarder. So Debo's just special. But the middle of the field's susceptible, and I think that Kittle's going to be able to get some play in this game. Also going to help with the run game like you suspect. I think he's going to be the star, and he's going to be hyped. Prime time, first game back, I think he's going to be hyped. I think he'll be the star of the game for the Niners.
I think that's a really great pick. Sean says, I like where the O-line is heading. I feel like they're beginning to gel and develop as a cohesive bond. The more they play together in live fire, the better they will become. Brendel has a way to go. Yeah. But I'm gonna piggyback off of what Sean said. I think with Kittle coming back, that's actually going to affect the rushing game more than it will the passing game, because I still think that even though Jimmy wants to be gunslinger Jimmy, Kyle Shanahan understands what gunslinger Jimmy could do for the game, and he's going to keep this on the ground as much as possible. And with the offensive line, a week more continuity, these young guards are getting a lot of confidence and experience. McGlinchey's still healthy. Obviously, we got the best left tackle in Williams, adding Kittle there as well. I think this is going to be a big game for Jeff Wilson. He averaged 4.7 yards per carry last game. Obviously, Seattle isn't, a crazy defense, but Denver hasn't proven to be a crazy defense up until this point either. So I really think that with this offensive line, the way that it is, with George Kittle coming back, ready to, block and, all that kind of good stuff, I expect a big game out of Jeff Wilson Jr. Shanahan hasn't really utilized the second running back that much. Like when Jeff Wilson Jr. was like the backup in Chicago, Elijah Mitchell averaged like 4.7 yards and Jeff Wilson Jr. averaged like 2.2 yards or something like that. Last game, Jeff Wilson Jr. was the lead back. He averaged 4.7 yards. TDP averaged around like 2.2 yards per carry. So I really think
can we do a side topic here for a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. Go ahead.
Because you brought it up, and I've been asking this, and it's been a hot topic all week. Do you blame Shanahan for Trey Lance? But I think one of the topics that stemmed off of that is, Kyle Shanahan's never had a 1,000-yard rusher. right? And his offense has produced a lot of good running backs for short periods of time, right? Breida and Tevin Coleman and yada, yada, yada. But everybody's like, okay, like why should the Niners draft high running backs, right? Because so far Trey Sermon failed. TDP really hasn't had a chance to take off. I liked what I saw from him in the Seattle game and a couple runs. But do you think that the Niners would benefit from spending a high draft capital on a running back? Because Shanahan seems to want to run these guys 25, 27 carries a game. And the guys that they have on the roster aren't the type of guys that are bell cows. So do you believe, like, even though it's contrary to what I believe in drafting running backs high, do you believe that the Niners should? Because if you look at let me lay some stats before I get your opinion.
Sure.
As far as first round picks, running back has the highest success rate of being a Pro Bowl player, an All Pro, all that, because the fact that typically teams that draft running backs in the first round, there aren't very many. And so when you do draft one, the guy's special. And then you can see guys like Javonte Williams and Breece Hall early in the second. So if you even want to lump those guys in, I think the fact that the Niners are a Super Bowl team, and as much as people want to rely on Eli Mitchell, he hasn't been reliable. Like, would drafting a running back in the mid second round next year, a guy like a Breece Hall or Javonte Williams, would that benefit the roster more? Because then you have a true bell cow in the backfield.
So I was somebody who 2 years ago, when they picked, or the year they picked Javon Kinlaw, I thought that they should have gone with Najee Harris, draft back and get Najee, because I thought that he was perfect for what the 49ers need. They obviously need, a running back that's reliant and dependable. I thought that would be the pick. Here's the reason why I'm gonna say no. Because the 49ers are terrible. Whoever picks in the first 3 rounds, they're terrible at isolating who the talent is. Whoever's scouting in the 5th round and below, that's the person that knows how to pick running backs. So unless they allow that scout to be the person that chooses the one in the first 3 rounds, I say no. Like, go with a different position, because it seems like the 49ers just aren't good at evaluating that position in the higher rounds. They seem to do a lot better finding the diamond in the rough than picking the bell, the best looking person at the dance. You know what I mean? So I think it would be a wasted pick unless there's just like a no brainer that falls to them. You know what I mean? But if they have to actually select out of a bunch of people and stuff like that, Randon, I don't know if I have the confidence that they would make the right pick, just based off of what they've done with their higher picks and picking running backs in the past. They haven't really hit on one unless it was undrafted or, 5th round or below.
Yeah, I mean, but the last 2 years, you're looking at maybe picking between 2 guys each time, right? Najee and Javonte, Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker. And so there's going to be 1 or 2 guys that are going to be in the top of the draft. I just think that you look at the chance of getting an all-pro talent with a running back is higher than a lot of positions in the draft based on data that I've researched on my own.
Yeah.
And having a bell cow that can take the punishment that Shanahan wants to delve out, which is 25 plus carries a game. Typically, I mean, he made Mitchell do it right after he broke his ribs, right? He doesn't care. He's going to feed that guy. And yeah, there's been a different leading rusher every year, but that's because of injury. That's not because of the fact that one guy stayed healthy and another guy, superseded him at the position. I think it's something to look at. And I'm typically not in favor of it. I'm definitely not in favor of paying running backs. And my philosophy on running backs might gross some people out. The fact that I think you should turn them and burn them into the ground and then not pay them and draft somebody different. I know that's a cruel way to talk about a human being, but in the business sense of football, I don't believe in paying running backs. And so it's just, I don't know. It's something against my philosophy, drafting a first round running back. But knowing that this team really needs it. And we've had so many injuries at the position, having a proven bell cow would be something that maybe would take this offense to the next level. And that's something I think that the Niners should consider.
Absolutely. I mean, I was all for it. Like I said, I got killed for that article too. I wrote it on SI and I said they should draft back. They should go back, accumulate picks and pick up Najee Harris before, because I expected the Steelers to pick him up. So before the Steelers pick, draft back and try to get him. But it has to be a no-brainer. If it's, I know if there's a choice, they're gonna pick the wrong one when it comes to the first 2 rounds in running back. So yeah, maybe stay away from it. But yeah, let's round it off. Obviously this is gonna be a big, big win. There's a big game because the NFC West is all tied at the top with one, or everybody is 1-1. So all of these games are going to be really important, Brandon, to get into the playoffs. This is one that I think a lot of people circled on the schedule initially, that this could be a possible loss just because of it being in Denver, week 3, supposedly 2 easy victories, which obviously didn't happen. But what is your prediction going into this game? Who do you think comes out with the victory? How does it go? And what would be the final score?
Yeah, I think this is going to go in a good way for the Niners. I think they're going to run the football quite well. I believe you're going to see receiving touchdowns. Already picked one for Kittle. I think Ayuk gets his first one because they're going to be so focused on Deebo Samuel. If you read all the Denver media from podcasts and stuff like that, they're so focused on Deebo that I think Ayuk is going to be left alone. Whether Jimmy wants to target him, because that's not his boy, that's Trey Lance's boy. We'll see if that remains to be seen. But I think Ayuk will get a touchdown, and then I'm going to go with a running touchdown for Jeff Wilson. I think he'll get one maybe in the red zone going in there, even though I think that he's kind of lost a little bit of a step. And I think Mosley will get his first interception of the year. I think he's going to be I think Cortland Sutton's going to get over 10 targets. They're going to try to force feed him. I think one of the corners, whether it be him or Cereberus Ward, will get an interception based on Russell Wilson trying to force the football, because I don't believe Surtain or Judy will play in this game. If they do, this predictions might be a little bit changed there, but even if they are, they're not 100%. So I think that Cortland Sutton will see easily over 10 targets. We're going to see a corner with an interception. Nick Bosa will continue the sack train, won a game over there, as well. Hopefully he gets some help. And the Niners end up winning 27-17.
Wow. Okay, cool. Wanda agrees with me. No, Niners suck at drafting running back. Thanks, Wanda, for jumping into the show. You have it as a pretty dominant victory. I think I'm gonna go the same. I mean, I don't think Denver has shown that this offense is that potent. They've struggled against defenses that aren't as good as the 49ers. So if they can't put up points against those defenses, I don't know why we should automatically think that they're going to be able to put up a whole bunch of points against this defense. Now, it is still Russ, so anything could happen. But I think this is going to be a pretty good on both sides of the ball type of thing. I think 49ers will have the time of possession, running the ball a lot. I think the play action pass is going to be very, very poignant for the 49ers. And I think, the guys you mentioned, I think Ayuk and Kittle both have big games. It's interesting that even when Jimmy came in, he did throw the ball to Ayuk more than he threw the ball to Deebo. So I think that Ayuk is earning the trust of everybody on the team with what he's done this offseason as well. So yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty dominant victory for the 49ers as well. I think it'll be 21-13. And the 49ers come out of this game 2-1, which I think most people thought they'd be after week 3 anyway. So I think thumbs up that even though the loss came from maybe a team we didn't expect them to lose to, they still end up 2-1 and still at tops at the NFC West.
Yeah, 2-1. I mean, if people start the season, if they said, hey, they beat the first 2 teams and lost to Denver in Denver, nobody would have blinked an eye. If they get this win, they're still 2-1. And we're ready to go. And so I think you're looking at a win for the Niners. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting talking points, Sean, in your chat. Who will be running back 2? Will they trust Mac, or will it be Jordan Mason? That'll be interesting, line after the game to see who gets more carries and see what Shanahan actually believes moving forward. I think the offensive line, will they be able to hold up against a better opponent on the defensive line, will be a good key there, what Kittle brings to the offense. And will the defense still be able to be as dominant? We're top 5 in every single category for pretty much across the defensive side of the football. Will they be able to stay as dominant as they will? I think there's going to be a lot of good taglines come Monday morning from this game.
Yeah, just Guessing right now, Randon, who do you think gets more carries after obviously Jeff Wilson Jr.? Is it going to be Mason or is it going to be Mac?
It just seems like Shanahan trusts the veterans. And I think Mac will probably have more carries, even though he just got added. You saw that in a blowout win, Jordan Mason didn't even get one carry after TDP went out. It was all Jeff Wilson, even in a blowout. So I don't know if there's no trust there. I don't know if he wants him to be purely special teams. I don't know if Mac is ready to even carry the football. Like I said, he didn't make the Houston roster. So, we'll see how that goes out. I hope Jordan Mason gets a a little puff there on the field and gets at least 5 carries. To me, if it was 5-5, I think that'd be a good split for the Niners offense and see. I think they probably have to get both backups into a real game, right? You can't really tell a lot from practice. You're not really trying to hit the guy as hard as you can. Mm-hmm. You're not really following through on a lot of the defensive side of the football. So I think they have to get both running backs at least 5 carries in this game to see if any of them show any burst in a real game, not just preseason or what you think they can do in practice.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Mac as well. And I think it's going to be more about pass pro because I think Kyle Shanahan trusts Mac probably in pass protection more than he does Mason. But it's tough, man, because all of us are looking to see what Mason's capable of. But I think it's going to be another game where we probably don't see too much of him unless, God forbid, another injury, right? Which seems to be the trend for the 49ers and the running back. Each game, they've lost a running back for a good amount of time. So hopefully they could buck that trend and come out with 3 healthy running backs after this game as well.
Sean's talking about how, and I really want to give a little insight to that. I think the fact that
I think he just missed how much the altitude affects running back for.
I thought he was saying how. I thought he was talking about why we picked Mac. I just think the fact that like you said, I mean, there's gonna be one guy that's gonna dominate the carries. He seemed to Shanahan's like the bull, the bull running back where he takes most of the carries. And then who do you trust more to not make a mistake when you have to spell that running back? It's probably Mac. You're not really looking for the home run burst or a guy that's going to carry the ball for 50 yards. You're going to look at a guy that's not going to have a holding penalty, who's not going to let a sack on Jimmy Garoppolo, who's going to be able to make whatever play you need him to make. And I think that's why he'll probably get more snaps in this game than Jordan Mason.
I love it. Well, Randon, I know you're not doing too much streaming for football, but talk a little bit about, what you got going on your hockey podcast, man.
Yeah, Hockey Royalty, LA Kings. We talk, all things hockey. We do a little bit of the entire Pacific, news and notes around the division, but mainly talk about the LA Kings and the Ontario Reign. So I've been doing that for over a year. The head guy now there at that podcast. Got my lovely co-hosts Russell and Joe talking all things there. And the season's about to start. Training camp started yesterday. So things are cooking, man. We're up over 300 subscribers. So if you guys wanted to subscribe, even though you don't like hockey, boost our numbers. I really would appreciate that. But if you want to learn a little bit about the sport and what's going on, and even if you want to be a Sharks fan that you're in San Francisco, even though I pity you and you want to learn more about the game, please come in, subscribe, and just learn a little bit about the sport, man. It's one of the best sports out there. And I really fell in love with it later on in my life in 2010. And so, didn't really grow up with it and learned to love it a lot. And now that's my favorite sport to watch, even over football. So it's something that I really enjoy. And then I'm doing guest stars, like you said, mentioned earlier on Rob Shue's channel, Mean the Dream and lovely co-hosts or a lovely host like you, Sunil. So I really appreciate the Niners talk, let me vent after the weekend and enjoy my hockey as well.
I love it, man. And for those of you, the description or the link to his Hockey Royalty podcast on YouTube is in the description. So it's quick. It takes less than 5 seconds to click the link and press subscribe and support a guy. And you know what? It's a free way to support our brother. So go ahead and take care of that. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so. I think we're almost at 1,000. We're under 40 subscribers away to get to 1,000. So if you could help out, share the video, like the video, tell your 49er fans if you like the content about this channel as well. That would be really helpful. And like I always say, stay safe, stay hydrated, and we'll talk again very, very soon. Go Niners.
Go Niners.